It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we're streaming on YouTube at the Team 980 ahead of Monday Night Football on a burgundy and gold game day here on the Team 980. It is a burgundy and gold game day that will see the Commanders take on the Cincinnati Bengals, and I do declare that there is a major opportunity for Washington tonight. It is going to be a let's thread the needle type of game if they're going to win this, which is how they're going to have to win most games this year because unlike last week where they were legitimately probably the more talented team, which I don't know what that says about the Cleveland Browns who lost to the New York Giants yesterday, but against the Giants, you could at least make an argument like, hey, this is a relatively equal, if not advantage, Commanders from a talent standpoint. Tonight, you do not have a talent advantage against the Cincinnati Bengals. They have one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. They have one of the 3 best receivers in football. They have one of the other 25 best receivers in football who's going to be making his season debut in T. Higgins. And they got a couple other really good players all around. Trey Hendrickson is the best edge player on the field by a lot on either side. So there's at premium positions really, really excellent players for the Cincinnati Bengals. They have blue chippers. The Commanders don't. On down the list, how long can I make this string it out of the Bengals are the better football team? However, the path to victory tonight runs through the middle. And it is a path to victory that exists on both sides of the ball. And you need to be great where you are hoping that they are terrible. And that is at the defensive tackle position. We have talked a lot about the Commanders' defensive tackles not stepping up and playing with the level of physicality, with the discipline, with the technique, with the execution, with anything that they are required to do at the level that they are going to need to do it. Nevertheless, a level that is, I think, up to the general standard that Joe Witt Jr. And Dan Quinn expect, but also one that exceeds the level for everybody else because they're supposed to be the best players on the team. And football is not a democracy in that everybody has to do their job at an equal level. You understand when you build a team, and I realize that this team wasn't built to win necessarily this year, but in theory, to give yourself a chance, you need to have outsized performances from your best players. Your best players need to cover for the fact that you've got other players at other positions that aren't that good compared to league average, or at least as good as they are. And John Allen and Daron Payne have not played up to, I would say, even a replacement level standard this year. And they need to play far above what anything could be considered as average. They need to play excellent football. And if they do that tonight, that's going to involve getting pressure on Joe Burrow up the middle. It's going to involve a pass rush. It's going to involve letting nothing go for a Cincinnati run game that has been pretty bad to start this year. But it also extends to the other side of the ball. When those guys are on the field, what's happening up the middle for Cincinnati? And the answer is hopefully nothing. Because tonight, in case you missed the news over the weekend, they are likely to be out not only Sheldon Rankins, but B.J. Hill. So both of their starting defensive tackles, Rankins is listed as out, Hill is listed as doubtful, basically meaning the league will launch an investigation if he plays. So he ain't playing. And if he is, he should be thoroughly banged up. And so a Commanders running game that has been one of the best in football so far, EPA per play, yards after contact, whatever metrics you want to look at for Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, those two dudes are having fantastic seasons through 2 games. And Tyler Biadasz and Nick Allegretti and Sam Cosmi have been okay to pretty good. Can they be great tonight? Can they take advantage of backups and backups, right? You're not only going to have backups playing starters minutes, but that means there's guys that probably aren't active typically that are going to get called up on the practice or off the practice squad that are going to have to play real snaps for them. And so can you literally run the ball down their throats to victory? And that sounds so incredibly old school. But at the end of the day, what else are you going to do? With a rookie quarterback and a defense that I think is potentially in peril going up against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow, controlling the ball just methodically marching down the field, getting 4.5 yards per touch, like that's not a bad way to play. And I realize that goes against the grain of what a lot of people want, which is they want to see this offense get opened up. And I do think you have to then leverage that into some play action shots. Like, let's get Jaden under center a little bit more. Let's see if we can leverage some downhill running into play action, whether it's just straight play action, whether it's some half rolls, whether it's some boot. Like, get Jaden on the move a little bit. Obviously, you don't want him dropping straight back a ton because that's just not where he's at his absolute best, and you're not utilizing all the skills that you have in your very rare and talented quarterback at this stage in his career. But as much as I want to see the deep balls to Terry, and yeah, do you fire a warning shot early? I know Russell was big on that. Oh, you just have to dial it up. Like, what if he's triple covered? I don't care, just throw it. It's like, okay, I'm not that extreme on it, but like, yeah, if there's an opportunity to get Terry on a fade or a slot fade, or to get him something down the field early and back up the safety, so to speak, yeah, that'd be great. But honestly, I don't really care if they back up the safeties or not. I'm running it anyway. I want to run into your safeties. I don't care if I gain 7 yards and your safeties are there. I want to run through these backup defensive tackles up front. And in doing so, I want to get a bunch of first downs. I want to milk the clock. I'm telling Jaden Daniels, hey, we're not going fast today. If we get going, like we might rush to the line to prevent subs. But ultimately, like we're not snapping the ball with more than 10 on the play clock. Most of the time, we're not going to snap it more than 5 on the play clock. And I'm going to manage the hell out of this game to give myself a chance to win. Because if Joe Burrow has a chance to go up against a tired defense, he's going to cook them, especially this defense. If Jamar Chase gets a bunch of shots at Emmanuel Forbes or Benjamin St-Juste or whoever else is out there, because Forbes, by the way, questionable tonight, looks like he might go. We'll get the latest as the show goes. But if they get a bunch of shots, the volume game, like they're going to hit some big plays. They're going to hit some explosives. But if they hit a couple of those in the middle of a bunch of really long drives, I'm like, okay, fine. You just put your defense back out on the field faster. Like I want Cincinnati to feel like they have to slow down because they need to give their defense a rest. I want them to try to nickel and dime the Commanders versus dialing up Jamar Chase down the field, trying to get chunks at a time. Because you ultimately win in this league with chunk plays. And I think for the Commanders tonight, their best chance to get chunk plays might be in the running game. Let's get 10 to 15-yard runs every couple of carries. Let's move the chains because this game, you know, it's as cliche as it comes. Yeah, it's won or lost in the trenches. And you see it, right? You see it across the NFL. We all got a chance to watch so much more football yesterday because we weren't necessarily locked in on one game. So if you have Sunday Ticket or you have Red Zone, like you're bopping around, you're watching Sunday Night Football, you see the Falcons can't run their offense because their offensive line is so banged up and the Chiefs are so good up front. I hope that John Allen and Daron Payne were watching Chris Jones last night and we're going, yeah, we can do that. I hope Nick Allegretti was texting those two being like, hey, I played with that guy. I've seen you guys in camp. I know you can do it. Do what Kansas City did to Atlanta last night is what Washington needs to do to Cincinnati offensively tonight. Make it so they literally can't run their offense. That'd be great. And on the other side, the opposite, the inverse. Just say, we can do whatever we want because you can't get to us. You have backup players in. Our starters are better than that. And we're going to own the clock. We're going to own the game. We're going to own the attitude. We're going to own everything that Dan Quinn wants to be. And that's how you win. Now, it is easy for me to sit here at 3 hours, 4 hours before kick and say all that stuff and be like, this is the plan. Go get them, boys. I don't have to line up against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and Trey Hendrickson can't ruin my day, at least directly. So it's much easier said than done. But as I get ready for this game tonight, and I'm looking at it at this point, a couple hours out, looking at the injury report over the weekend and thinking about how the Commanders were able to do what they did last week. Obviously, they're going to need to finish better in the red zone. But the plan that they had last week, despite all the talk about opening up the offense and does Jaden need to throw it deep more, eventually the answer is yes. This week, I actually don't know that that's the case. I'm going straight up the gut, dominate in the trenches, take advantage of where the Bengals have a weakness. And they, by the way, haven't been good with those two starting defensive tackles in. And See if you can keep Lou Anarumo out of his bag, because you're never getting in 3rd and longs in all these situations where he can heat Jaden Daniels up. And hopefully the Commanders can stay clean. No turnovers so far this year. No picks for Jaden. Going to need that to continue tonight to give yourself a fighting chance. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, let's get your keys to victory on the night. 301-230-0980. Ant will chime in as well. What do you guys want to see tonight as the Commanders get ready to take on the Bengals? It's a burgundy and gold game day here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 982. You can catch us out there. Leave a comment. Actually, let me make sure I have the chat up for today. We'll get you a little Take Command preview coming up in about, 15 minutes from now. But for now, we're talking to you on the phones at 301-230-0980. Our pal Michael Phillips will join us at 5 o'clock. We'll go around the NFL at 5:30 as well. All right, let's go to, where's the call sheet? There it is. Let's go to John in Oklahoma. John, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. What do you think the Commanders need to do to win tonight?
Thanks for taking my call, first of all. Hey, they got to keep the ball away from their quarterback. They're running the ball with Eck and Robinson, to play keep away football. As much as we can keep him on the sideline over there, the less possessions, that's the key. And, win a turnover battle, man. It's just one-on-one football. If you know what's going to beat us is him, their quarterback, their best chance of beating us is him on the field. But limit the possessions that they got, and like I say, just run downhill and punish them, man. Feed them the ball like we did last game, and that's the key to it, man. Football, smash mouth football. The run sets up the pass. Don't put it on Daniels. Just don't put it on his shoulders to win. We got weapons, backfield, and that's it, man.
Thanks, John. Yeah,
okay?
You got it. I mean, it is actually, I think, in some ways that simple. I mean, obviously, you're going to need your quarterback to make plays. That is, at the end of the day, really important. And I would be telling Jaden Daniels, like, hey, we're going to be fastidious with the ball. We're going to make sure that we are not turning the football over. We're going to make sure that we, if you need to scramble, like, that's fine with me today. Like, let's get some first downs on the ground. Like there's a lot of ways you can win, but ultimately, like, I just look at the matchups with this. Well, one, I look at a couple things. One, the fact that the Bengals' two defensive tackles, starting defensive tackles, are likely out. That seems rather significant, right? Let's run at backup players. Where's their weakness? Right where we want it, right up the gut. Those interior guys are pretty good run blockers, even if they've had some struggles at times in the past game. Like, let's run right behind Tyler Biotish and Sam Cosmi. And let's do it with Brian Robinson, who's an enormous human being who likes to run into people. But you also have the reality that when the other team is better, more randomness is good for you. Randomness comes in small sample sizes, and like John said, like, shrink the number of possessions. That's going to lead to more randomness, and that's hopefully going to lead to a Commanders win. Let's go to Dan in Fort Washington, who I think has many of the same ideas. Dan, thanks for calling. What do you want to see tonight for the Commanders, and what do you think their best shot to win this thing is?
Hi, Craig. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm a big fan of the show, so keep up the great work.
Thank you.
So I think two things I want to discuss. So I know Brian Robinson, he's our bell cow. But I think that we should, implement Austin Eckler with the running game. I know he's getting at least 4, almost 5 yards a carry. People forgot that, 2-3 years ago, he had like 20 plus touchdowns with receiving and rushing. So I think he is very underrated, in my opinion, as a rusher. I know people think that he's known for catching in the backfield, but he's also, between the tackle, he's a good runner. And also, that also helps Jaden Daniels a lot in the pocket presence. So, that will open up a lot of play action passes. And then, last thing, I think winning the time of possession, eat that clock, same formula that when New England beat the Bengals. So, if he can get at least plus 10, 15 minute, positive on the time of possession, I think they got a good chance to win. So thank you so much for taking my call, Craig.
Yeah, you got it, man. You got it, Dan. Appreciate the call. And I think obviously Eckler's going to have to get involved because I think the volume is going to be high. But I also think, like, hey, run the football. You guys don't need me to tell you that. That's pretty simplistic analysis. Like, what can I give you that's a little bit deeper than that? I do think that, like, one of the things that becomes really important is, like, the personnel usage tonight, right? So can you get those two guys on the field together? How do you balance that? Because that's good, that's good for Washington, but that obviously they're going to match that with certain personnel on the Cincinnati side. But I want them to match that because I want them to be in heavier personnel because then I know that those backup defensive tackles are going to be out there. I don't want them to be in a situation where maybe they go a little bit lighter on the line and, do something somewhere else and feel like they can get away with it. I want them in situations where they're kind of built up and we're just going to be better. Like, ultimately, you're kind of picking your matchups with the personnel. The other thing is, if B-Rob and Austin are going to be have heavier workloads, like, do you want them on the field at the same time, or do you want one of them resting to try to come in fresh? So there's like almost a sports science-y, like, fitness, balance to all of that. And then what do you do with your tight ends? What do you do with their wide receivers? Like there's a lot of things here that you're considering. Ultimately, I think where the Commanders are probably better off tonight, and I think this is where the Commanders are better off in general this season, is heavier personnel groupings. I don't think they have the receivers, obviously, that you want to put 3-4 on the field a ton, which is hilarious because their offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury, who comes out of an air raid, thought tree where 10 personnel is just kind of a regular thing, aka 1 running back, 0 tight ends, and 4 receivers. But I think that getting into 2 backs, getting into 2 tight ends, getting into 3 tight ends, and loading up, and then you can also use your play action off of that. You have tight ends that are versatile enough that can get out and catch passes for you, that can split out. You have running backs that can split out. So you can still get to all the things you want to from a formation standpoint, get to some of your screen game, get to some of your downfield stuff, get to some of your fake screens, and get those like they did last week where they leak Zach Ertz up the field. You can get to all your base plays in your offense out of these heavy personnel packages. And if Cincinnati decides to go lighter to match you because they're scared of that, well, now you just get in a thicker formation and run the football downhill. So it's going to be interesting to watch, like how much you spread it out. Because I think you could also make an argument, right? This is where the schematics of football become really fun to me. Is, okay, I hear you on all this heavy stuff, but what about spreading it out? And now you get into light personnel groups, and there's actually more pressure on those defensive tackles because they don't have some thicker bodies behind them. I think that could be an actually good plan. Now that I think of it, like, so there's like, do we just line up and mash it, or do we get out and spread? Let's get in some 11 personnel groupings with guys like Zacchaeus and De'Ami Brown, who are very willing blockers, and let's run inside zone out of shotgun. And if we can get the double teams that we want up front and get some of the blocks hit up front on these backup defensive tackles, there's not as many bodies in there. And now maybe we're looking at some explosive gains. Like, running the ball is the easy part. The Bengals have been bad against the run. They have backup defensive tackles. The Commanders have been good running the football. They don't want to put too much pressure on their young quarterback. They want to control time of possession. How they run it is actually the more interesting thing. So that's going to be the fun part of the chess match tonight between Cliff and one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, and Lou Anaromo. Let's go to, is it Anthony? Is this real? Is it line 1?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just asking. Mutu in Frederick. Mutu, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. What do you think the Commanders need to do to win tonight?
Hey, Craig. Yeah, and I'm real, man. First time speaking with you, so good being on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I think we keep the same formula that we did against the Giants. The ground game, eating up the clock. One of your callers said earlier, one of the keys is keeping the ball away from Joe Burrow and their offense. I want to see improvements on defense. I don't really trust our secondary right now. I know we're an improving defense. So I want to see our defensive line step up, be more physical, be more aggressive. I want to see more action from our linebackers, some blitzing. I also want to see some of our receivers step up. I know our offense has been conservative, which is fine. We're not turning the ball over, which is key. But I also want to start seeing, take some shots down the field. But I am concerned about our defense, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. We got to get to Burrow and put pressure on him. Yeah. So really, for me, Craig, that's pretty much it, man. Thanks.
All right, thanks for the call. Yeah, I mean, they definitely need to get pressure on Burrow tonight. He is someone who will hold the football a little bit. He is someone who will sit back in the pocket and take a shot. And if you can get there a half second faster than you think he can, or he thinks you can, then you hit his arm and ball pops up, and hey, now we got a turnover. So they're going to have to take advantage of the opportunities. They're going to have to make some plays in the secondary. They're going to have to play better. I mean, I think the linebackers have generally been all right. I think they got better week 1 to week 2, and I think that's going to continue to happen as they learn to play off of the guys in front of them. But I think that, as I said in the opening segment, the biggest thing tonight is down the hatch. Whether that is on the offensive side where you take advantage of backups for them, or on the defensive side where John and Duran need to play their best game of the season to have a shot to win tonight. When we get back, Logan Paulson chimes in with his thoughts via Take Command. We'll get you more of an X's and O's preview of what the Commanders can do to win tonight. They're coming up at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about it more with Michael Phillips. We will go around the NFL. It has been, by the way, it's worth saying, Commanders, big underdog tonight, 7.5 points. Underdogs having a whale of a weekend so far. So, we're going to see if the Commanders can continue that trend. We'll talk about it all with Michael Phillips coming up at 5 o'clock. We'll go around the NFL at 5:30. And then who are the 6 players that we have our eyes on the most tonight? Anthony and I will hit you with our pick 6 coming up at 6 p.m. That is all to come here on the Hoffman Show on a Burgundy and Gold game day on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, building towards Commanders and Bengals tonight. Let's get you a little bit deeper X's and O's preview now, courtesy of Take Command. Logan and I recorded our preview episode last week, so there might be a few references to some guys that may be in or out of the lineup based off some of the injury news that's come in. But obviously, if you keep watching with us, we'll get you not only the latest of everything that happened over the weekend, but we'll give you the inactives when they come out, because we'll still be on the air when those come out later on in the show. And in fact, I can actually give you some news that just came through. The Commanders have activated Andre Jones Jr. and Bobby Price. Price, a corner. Andre Jones Jr., of course, the defensive end, off their practice squad for tonight. So yet a different edge guy that gets called up. We'll see if he's active or if Jamin Davis is back on the field. I would expect it's Jamin, but we'll see. That could be something to watch tonight for sure. And then I'd say the Bobby Price news isn't great necessarily for Emmanuel Forbes. Maybe it's just insurance in case he goes out there and then has to come out. But we'll see what they ultimately do with the inactives. But that's the latest. Here was what Logan and I had to line it up. I mean, the tape doesn't change when you go back and watch Cincinnati from the previous 2 weeks. So from a schematic standpoint, this is as good as you're going to get. Logan Paulson and I Take Command, getting you ready for Bengals and Commanders.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Take Command podcast. Craig Hoffman here. Logan Paulson there. And it is time to preview the Bengals and Commanders. Bum, 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 bum. Monday Night Football, Logan, so people have some extra time to listen to this. Going to be a fun one in Cincinnati on Monday night. Before I forget, housekeeping-wise, it will be me and a Paulson on Tuesday morning for an instant reaction show. Grant is going to join me, not Logan. Logan's going to be up very late on Monday night. So Tuesday morning will be our instant reaction show. GP and I will knock it out, and then Wednesday we'll be back with a film breakdown. So that'll be our schedule next week. But Logan, before we worry about next week, let's worry about this week and the challenge that Jaden Daniels has against this Bengals team. Lou Anarumo, one of the most respected defensive coordinators in the league. They got some real talent on that side of the ball. But what makes a Lou Anarumo defense so good, and how has he consistently been one of the better DCs in football over the last, let's call it, half decade to decade?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably do a whole show like getting in the weeds on what makes him really good. But at the highest of high levels, to me, it's that they're really well coached, right? He's got good players for his system. They know what to do. They play hard. They're in the right spots. And so like that's like kind of step one to having a good defense at any level. But I think the thing that makes Lou Anarumo's stuff kind of special is that they do enough variety and they run it in different ways that gets you that puts you in conflict from a passing game perspective. So they show you a quarters look, and they do run quarters and they run it pretty good, but then they go from quarters to like a man match, or they go from quarters to a single high look, and they're playing man coverage and they're bringing a pressure. They bring a little bit of zone pressure. They kind of dabble in a lot of different stuff. Very similar actually to kind of like New England and what Bill Belichick used to do. It's like you'd watch a Bill Belichick team and they had kind of like their core identity. But you couldn't really pin it down because they weren't in it that much, because they kind of would get into a variety of different things and a variety of different pressures. I will say, like after watching the New England game and the Kansas City game, he does seem to have a tendency to want to bring pressure on first down, whether that's nickel or a linebacker or some type of run stunt. They get in there, kind of jam front, and they'll stunt the play side 3 technique, and they'll loop the nose kind of to stop the run. So they do a lot of different stuff that I find over the course of my playing career is problematic, not only from a run game standpoint, but specifically from a coverage standpoint, from a quarterback seeing it. And like when you're watching the All-22, you kind of sit down, you're like, man, like this looked like man to me, but it's actually match. And like I probably would have thrown this ball here, but they did a really good job passing this concept off because of the match principle. And I probably would have thrown a pick. So I think that's something that'll be really interesting to keep an eye on with Jaden this week is how he sees the passing game and how Cliff can kind of limit it. Because, I went back and watched the Giants game again, and I think Cliff did a really good job of forcing the Giants into certain coverage structures based on formations and based on kind of that screen game early on. I'm not sure Lou is going to give you that same response, but if you can dictate to him on some level and simplify what Jaden's looking at, I think that's going to be super helpful. And then last point, I do think, and we can talk about this in more detail in a second, I think they have a really hard time from a personnel standpoint stopping the run. They just don't have the same people that they've had there. So I think that's something that, again, is favorable for Washington.
Yeah, so that's interesting because if I hear all that, I'm thinking Cliff Kingsbury is going to be like, we're going to run the hell out of the football. Like, they don't do this thing well. The things they do well come with a lot of risk. So if we're going to pass the ball downfield a ton, that comes with a lot of risk. Turnovers is something that we've avoided so far this year. Let's just run the football and continue to do that. And I think, unlike some coordinators that have been here in the past who might have that thought and then can't actually follow through on it or won't follow through on it, whatever you want to phrase it, or however you want to phrase it in the game, like Cliff has shown that discipline. He will stick with the run, which I think is kind of funny considering his background, the air raid. He's a former quarterback, the whole thing. And last year, the offensive coordinator was a former running back who wanted to pass the hell out of the football. So it's kind of funny how some of that works sometimes in the league. But for Cliff, like, he will do it. I think the most impressive part of this offense has been the run game so far. And I also think that they have been very, very careful about Jaden in the drop back game and limiting those opportunities. And so while I think they do want to get to a point, and we saw it last week, right, where they did open it up a little bit more as the game went, whether that was him feeling his way into the game or kind of the realization that we talked about that maybe they weren't letting him get into a rhythm. It was too robotic, too predetermined. They've got to find that balance. And so how does Cliff go about making sure that Jaden has enough in the game that he's able to hit the things that he needs to when the moments call for it, and that they can be explosive in a way that they weren't last week? 0 throws, air yards of 20 plus, but also mitigating the risk and making sure they don't put the ball in harm's way and take advantage of a run defense that perhaps is right for taking advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head there in terms of like the conundrum of this game. And so what I would say is that, like, obviously they've struggled stopping the run in 2 games, right? They really struggled against New England. That doesn't mean they never stopped the run. Just want to be clear, but New England ran the ball effectively. Richardson, is that Stevenson? Is that his name?
Ramondre Stevenson.
Ramondre Stevenson, yeah. Did a great job of just kind of getting extra yards, 15-yard carry here, but there was a lot of kind of neutral or 1-yard gains. So again, like, being deliberate and sticking with it. And I think the other thing is when you watch Cincinnati is they understand that they're having a hard time with it. So they're doing more stuff on early downs to kind of slow you down. And I mentioned some of those things, like with the line stunts and the pressures and, walking linebackers up in the A gap and getting out of. I thought New England did a really good job of getting them out of, by running the football, some of those too high coverage structures that they want to be in and getting them into more single high looks. But they know that that's an issue for them. So they're going to have an adjustment. I'm very confident, that's going to kind of say, hey, we this is something we need to get taken care of. The next point is, to run the football, you need to be in a very favorable game flow. So that's the other thing I just want to point out here. Like, one of the things about last week is that, like, Cliff's able to stick with the run because, Jaden and the offense did a good job getting first downs, but also the score never got to a point where it was out of hand and they needed to throw the football a ton. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Like, in this game specifically, the complementary football game is going to be really important too. That second part of what you said about limiting Jaden in that drop back passing area, because if they're down by 2 scores, you're going to have to throw the football. He's going to have to get back there and let it rip. And again, like we just talked about, like, that's kind of how this defense is built. They're built kind of to defend the pass and rush the passer from like a blitzing standpoint. The personnel's outside of Trey Hendrickson from a pass rush standpoint is just okay, but they're good at it because they built the defense understanding that Joe Burrow's their quarterback and they're going to have to defend a lot of passes. And so that's what they're good at. So if the game flow swings in that favor where we have to throw the football a lot, it's definitely going to be what I would say very hard for Cliff Kingsbury to do what you were talking about there and kind of walk that line of insulating and being conservative, but also kind of picking your spots, because the spots you're picking become way more frequent. You have to be way more aggressive. So that's where I think, to me, that's maybe the most interesting storyline of the game is, how do you keep it within striking distance so you can run the offense you want to run?
Yeah, and by the way, not only is it protective of Jaden and the football in terms of he hasn't thrown a pick yet, only rookie quarterback to not have done that, but it's protective of the offensive line. Like
Yeah.
straight drop back situations is where this line is going to struggle more. They're really, really solid, if not excellent at running the football. The way they've been able to get movement, the creativity that Cliff shows in the run game sets them up to be good, and they have executed on that. So what is it that the Cincy defensive line, front seven, secondary, whatever level of the defense is the problem? What is it that they struggle with running the football? And does that, like the areas that they've struggled with specifically, does that jive with how the Commanders have run the football so far this year?
I mean, I think it does. I think when you look at, the interior specifically, like let's talk about the defensive line. So you got Sam Hubbard, you got B.J. Hill as a defensive tackle, you got Sheldon Rankins as a defensive tackle, and Trey Hendrickson as a defensive end. B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins were banged up against Kansas City, so they were basically playing two backup players, Jay Tuafili and Zach Carter. And so basically, when you watch the game, when you run at them, they're kind of undersized. They're all around 300 pounds, 295, something like that. Again, they're more pass rushing. They're kind of gap shooting, quick guys. But when you run at them and you're aggressive with it, they seem to have a hard time like sitting double teams. Kind of very similar, on a different scale to what we saw last week against the Giants. Like, think about it. Joe Wood Jr. is playing these softer coverage structures. You're playing like boxes. Double teams can sink and really sit on our interior players, and it's hard to make plays and shed blocks when there's four hands on you. Like, it's just hard to do that. And they're having more of a difficulty with that also. And so they try to do different stuff. And even though their defensive line is maybe a little bit undermanned at the moment, like their linebackers are very good. Jermaine Pratt is a very solid player, but Logan Wilson, I think, is borderline special in terms of how he plays the game. He's probably, after watching these two games, I would say for sure top 7, maybe top 5 middle linebacker in the NFL. Like, he's just very instinctive. He's fast. He's a good blitzer. He's not quite the athlete of Luke Kuechly, but there's shades of that kind of intellect playing the position. So you have that piece on the field, and again, he makes up for a lot of that stuff. But when the double teams are getting pushed into his lap, he can't make plays. So I would say you want to run right at him. And that's like a simple solution. Lou Anarumo is going to know that. He's going to watch the film and be like, we have to have a solution here. And I think the great thing about this Cliff Kingsbury offense is watching back the film again, like there were so many times where Cliff did such a good job, and I think Jaden has to get credit for this too, of getting in favorable box counts. And so what I mean by that is, like, we ran all those screens, and so they ended up going 4 over 3 oftentimes defensively. So 4 defenders over 3 offensive players. When you do that, you're removing a box player. So even though we have, a tight end and 5 linemen and a running back, they would line up with a 5-man run defending box. So 40 linemen and 1 linebacker, which I have not seen. Maybe I'm not watching Cliff's offense enough closely, but like that's pretty big time for them to respect that screen element of your offense so much that they're going to play that box structure there. And so that numbers advantage is huge for us. So even if Cliff can find ways to induce those number games in the run game, it doesn't matter what they do because we'll be able to run the football. We just have the math favors us. So that's where I would look. Like, that to me is an interesting kind of wrinkle to keep an eye on is what are they going to do? What's Cliff going to do this week to make sure we get those box numbers that way? Because again, then we can't get the run pressures. We can't get the run stunts with the same level of frequency because they don't have enough people in the box to run them. So that's kind of what I would say is Lou Anarumo is going to have a plan. What's Cliff's plan? What's Lou's response? And can we get into some of those favorable looks like we did last week?
Yeah, I mean, teams don't run stunts on every single snap that they think a run is coming because there's risk there. Like, yes, you could make a play in the backfield, but you get a guy that's all of a sudden out of gap, gets caught. There's a huge wash. Someone gets tripped up. Running back cuts back, and now all of a sudden he's out into the second, third level. And a linebacker scraping over here. That cutback lane is wide open, and you're in the third level of the defense, and that's how you get big explosive runs. So there is a huge level of risk there, especially if you're light in the box. And I think not only have they done the good job with that formationally, Logan, but you started to touch on this as well. Jaden does such a great job of making those reads beforehand that, hey, okay, this is a light box. Let's check into it. Let's check into the screen. Or if it's built into the play, like let's pick the right one. But also, I know people, I even was one of these people, hated like that quarterback draw last week. And then you were like, well, this is why they checked into it. Jaden's clearly has a great feel for whatever number of plays they're giving him at the line of scrimmage. He has that freedom to check and be like, this is what we're looking for. And I think it goes back even to that play in the preseason that everyone was like, no, yes. The deep shot to Giammi Brown against the Jets where he checks into it. And basically the coaching staff was like, that's the right thing. Just don't do it in the preseason. We're not trying to get you hit and we're not trying to give away too much. But he understands on a fundamental level what he's looking for. It's not like a memorization game. Like there's a fundamental understanding of if this, then that, because we are looking to exploit X. And if he sees X, they're going to check into the right play, it seems like, on a pretty regular basis. So you have to execute it. So like that quarterback draw winds up going nowhere, but you go back and watch the tape and you're like, actually, that was the right check. And I understand why he did it. So does it really come down to, I guess in that way, I don't want to say Jaden's pre-snap decision-making is more important than his post-snap decision-making, but it feels like if this is how Anaromo is going to set it up, if I'm Cliff, I'm trying to give Jaden a lot of those pre-snap things to get us in the right play, and it might be a fairly conservative game plan, but one that can yield pretty good results.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said there is really important, is that Jaden, like you mentioned, the draw that wasn't successful, but also like the first Austin Eckler run, it was like a 3rd and 14, maybe 3rd and 15. He gets a 14-yard run. Like he checks to a run there. It ends up being an explosive play, explosive run, if you categorize an explosive run as 10 yards. So, Dan said something in one of his pressers where he was like, Jaden Daniels is playing the position the way we want him to play it. And he was kind of alluding to the fact that like we are getting some of this intellectual flexibility pre-snap with it, right? Which I think is something that is going to be extremely important for maximizing the offense. And, we talked a couple times about how, the defense tricked him or whatever, but I think on the whole in that first game, he did such a great job of, again, maximizing the offense. So I do think that his preparation leading into this game and his ability to understand the checks, understands the coverage, understand the disguises of the Cincinnati defense is going to be extremely critical, because like that's one thing, again, that feels very Kyle, Sean, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur-esque in terms of what Cliff did this last game against the Giants, is those guys are very particular about not running into bad looks. Sometimes you have to do it, but they're very particular about not doing it. And I thought that they did, the staff did a really good job of saying, hey, we like these runs, but we're not going to run them into just to bang our head against the wall. We're going to run them versus the looks we want to run them against, which I thought was pretty fantastic. So I don't know. I think that's going to be a huge storyline as well. Because Dan was basically alluding to the fact that like even though he hasn't thrown the ball, Jaden Daniels, like the way I think a lot of fans want him to, that other element, that kind of unseen element of his game in terms of post snap stuff has been excellent. So I think again, like because of what Cincinnati does in terms of the variation, it's going to be much more challenging this week. But hopefully he's up for the task, and if he can do that, he's going to put the offense in a good position to be successful for sure.
All right, that from Take Command. If you want to get more on the defense and obviously if you want to flip the field, all that kind of stuff, you can check out the Take Command podcast. You got a little bit of time before the game tonight after our show ends. Of course, following us here on the Team 980, you will get Burgundy and Gold Game Day, the pregame with Denton and Linnell. And then you will get, you'll get the Jags-Bills game coming up starting at 7:30. Ant, you had a player that you wanted to talk about a little bit before we get to Michael Phillips here at the top of the hour. Who is it that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I wanted to key in on the guy that's probably going to be wreaking a lot of hell. He finished second in sacks last year. Trey Hendrickson. I wanted to see what his pass rush win rate has been so far through 2 games, coming off the year he had last year where he finished second in the NFL in sacks.
That is a great question. In theory, it should be easy to find on PFF, and it's not. However, if I'm looking at ESPN's number, this is updated through week 2 games. He's pretty easy to find in the rankings, at edge pass rush win rate rankings, because he's first, Anthony. Did you know that when you asked the question, or were you just curious?
I didn't know it. I mean, I figured he would probably be like up there, like maybe top 5, top 10. I just wasn't sure if, he was going to be building off the year he had last year. And I just know he poses the biggest threat on that defensive line.
Sure does.
And for our offensive line. So that's why I was curious to see where he was, because now I'm even more concerned. And we definitely need to lean on that run.
So he has played 33 plays pass rush snaps on the edge. He has 13 wins. That's a pass rush win rate of 39%. Despite being double teamed 30% of the time, which is tied for Myles Garrett, or tied with Myles Garrett for most in the top 10. Yeah, he's real good. He's one of the most underrated pass rushers in the league. Like, there's just no doubt. Like, he is a legit, 14, 15 sack guy. Elite upper edge rusher, and he never gets mentioned with Von Miller and Myles Garrett and, Aiden Hutchinson and Will Anderson is starting to get in that pretty quickly with what he did last year in Houston. Like, he's just not mentioned. Micah, he's just not mentioned with those dudes, and he should be. He's nasty. I think the good news is, because you've got interior guys who theoretically aren't nearly as good because, they're playing backups with their 2 starters out. You should be able to chip him. You should be able to double him. You should be able to slide protection his way. Mm-hmm. You have to just plan for it. And that's the good news. The bad news is he's still awesome and he can still kill you.
Yeah, that's concerning. I mean, I will say, I think last weekend, for the most part, I think our O-line, the tackles, they did a solid job against the Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, even Dexter Lawrence.
They definitely did.
I'm not overly concerned, but the guy's still
concerned.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not concerned.
What I will say is, for whatever this is worth, run defense, his grades the first 2 weeks, in week 1 against New England, he graded out at a 59. His pass rush grade was 75. Against Kansas City in week 2, pass rush grade 84. Had 2 sacks.
Yeah.
But he only graded out as 73, which is still green and very good as a rusher, as a run blocker. And his run defense grades year over year, first year in Cincinnati was awful. He graded out in the 40s, but then 58, 51, 66. And so, if you can run at him, is definitely better than having him pass rush at you.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that just feeds into the game plan tonight and something to watch for. All right, when we get back, we'll talk about every aspect of this game with Michael Phillips. It's a Monday, so Michael's going to stop by here on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2 here on the Team 980 on a burgundy and gold game day. We're with you live until 7 o'clock. Then we hand it off to Denton and Linnell. Get you set for Commanders and Bengals tonight. The one departure we'll make from pure game preview is coming up at 5:30, where we'll look back to everything else that happened around the NFL yesterday. I will pick the game before we get out of here as well. But right now, 5 o'clock on a Monday, this is going to sound a little bit different because we're previewing a game instead of reviewing it. But it is 5 o'clock. It is Monday, and it's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Mondays mean Michael Phillips. Michael, did you wear your preview hat instead of your review hat?
It's weird. I wear it backwards, but I guess that makes me feel more at home. No, I think it allows us a little extra time to review other things, like who do we need to invite to the conference to get Syracuse a win? I mean, we're scraping the barrel here with Stanford. Do we have to go lower? Do we need to invite like a Prairie View or something? What's going on here?
Michael, we didn't want to be here in the first place. If it was up to me, we'd still be in the Big East.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, so there's
you're not
Anthony,
wrong.
With that said, do you have any ideas, Anthony? Who should we invite to the ACC so that apparently we can get a win? Because we lost to Stanford on Friday night.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, but I don't really have a good answer, to be honest.
Okay.
That's all right. I got the preview hat on. I'm ready to preview. It's going to feel a little weird, but I think we'll work right into it.
Okay, excellent. That was a low blow that's got me all shook up. I'm all out of sorts, Michael. It's okay. I think I can get back on track because preview questions, they're easy, Michael. Like this: if the Commanders can be yet another underdog to pull off an upset tonight, what are their keys to upsetting the Bengals?
Yeah, it's funny because, right, you've had all these 0-2 teams win this weekend, and they've all been correctly portrayed as upsets. And now tonight, the 0-2 team is not just the favorite, but the heavy favorite, which certainly gives this a different dynamic, right? The Bengals are the desperate team here. I don't think anybody is going to get on the radio in the next hour and say, if the Commanders don't win this, they're in such a bad spot. It's a must-win game. Nobody's saying that. They're saying that on the radio in Cincy. They're the 7.5-point favorites. Gives us a very weird dynamic to work with here. Look, I'm not going to break any ground. I don't think that you haven't covered already. The corners have to be good. This is Joe Burrow. This is Jamar Chase, and this is some other receivers who can also do some damage. I mean, I'm not worried about the offense. We'll dive into the offense, I'm sure, here as we go. My concern is the defense. Can they hold them under 28 points? I feel like is probably a reasonable target with this offense, these weapons, and what Washington's bringing to the table to counteract them.
Yeah, I think that is, the corner is playing better. That is big. I'd actually like, though, Michael, for them to not have to play at all. I'd like for them to not be on the field very much. How much can the Commanders realistically take advantage of the fact that the Bengals are playing two backup defensive tackles likely? B.J. Hill was listed as doubtful. Sheldon Rankin's already ruled out. So is that the key for them to just run the football, or is the NFL not work like that anymore? Like it's just run the football, hold it, time of possession. Or is that just not a feasible strategy in the NFL in 2024?
Yeah, it works against the Dallas Cowboys for sure. I've got the formula to beat them, and that's it. For all the talk of this being a passing league, for all the talk of, it's Mahomes' league and Burrow's league, like what happened yesterday? The Chiefs didn't have their running back, and the offense sputtered a little bit, and you saw it, right? You still have to do both to win. I agree with you. Time of possession is a crucial metric here, right? They need to have 6-7 minute drives when they touch the ball. Keep the clock moving. What do we say as an underdog? Shorten the game. Fewer possessions introduces more randomness, more possibility that one ball could tip the wrong way, one turnover, one takeaway, one fumble could be the difference in this ball game. That starts with Brian Robinson. That starts with Austin Eckler. I'm excited to watch both of them tonight. They've been very good this season. That includes the short passing game. Zach Ertz, John Bates. I think we've been seeing a lot of John Bates because of what he provides on the blocking, but don't forget he can catch passes as well. I think that's an important thing for Jaden Daniels to have those quick targets. And then you force feed Terry McLaurin on the short stuff, on the screens, on reverses, whatever it is you want to draw up for him. This game will be won or lost within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. I'm not I'm not of the belief that Jaden's going to have these big chunk plays. All of a sudden, this offense moves at 30 yards at a time. I think this is a 5 yards at a time offense. No holding penalties, no false start penalties, right? Those things can set back drives to go 5 yards at a time. You start with those building blocks. You build off of them. I think time of possession is a crucially important metric here.
Michael Phillips with us here on the Hoffman Show. That does then touch on kind of the big talking points of the week. Everyone wants to see this offense open up. Everyone's like, oh, okay, how do they get Terry McLaurin the ball more? Let's start with Terry. Like, if you're Cliff, how conservative an effort are you to make sure that he's involved, especially if the number of passes might be limited by your strategic choices that we just touched on?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because he's getting so much attention. And the answer might be to break De'Ami Brown on a deep one. The answer might be for Luke McCaffrey to get loose and become a threat. If McLaurin is double teamed, I don't know that there's a lot you can do other than force feed him at the line of scrimmage and run him into the pile and try to get 5 to 7 yards out of it. I just don't know that there's a way to get separation when Terry's bracketed. It's no disrespect to him. I just don't think he's that kind of receiver. So I think it starts with success elsewhere. Zach Ertz certainly included in that. He's had some nice games. If you can get them to have to respect De'Ami, right? If the safety has to respect De'Ami or has to respect Luke McCaffrey, that makes Terry's life a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, and then there's the deep stuff. I kind of am of the thought that, yes, if there's opportunities, and yes, you're probably going to have a couple. I'm not saying zero, but like this idea that the offense has to open up for them to be successful. I don't know that tonight's the night. How do you feel about the idea of becoming more vertical in the passing game tonight specifically versus the Bengals?
I agree with you. I think that what was the comment this week from the Cincy corner? Like, oh, they run a college offense. Oh, they keep things simple. And if I were Cliff Kingsbury, I'd be like, thank you. I think Cliff Kingsbury's had a really good start to the season. Look around, right? Chicago dumped Justin Fields and really regrets it right now watching Caleb Williams go through his rookie struggles. Jaden Daniels is the best rookie quarterback in football, full stop, period. And I think a big part of that is how Cliff Kingsbury has eased him in, how he's, managed that workload, how he's introduced concepts and done it in a way that, the performance of the offense as a whole does not have to struggle as a result. I don't think this is the night to just let it all fly. I think this is a night for more gradual introduction of concepts. I think this is another night, to bring a few more wrinkles into this. But on the whole, I don't think there's any need to all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, they haven't gone long, they have to go long. I would argue what they've done through 2 weeks has been largely very successful.
I would too, with the exception of the red zone. Like, you got to score touchdowns down there. And week one, they were fine. And in the preseason, like in the joint practices, for instance, they destroyed Miami in the red zone period. So I do think that's coming, Michael.
And not to cast blame, but a lot of those are penalties on the offensive line in the red zone as well. That is not how they draw it up on the paper.
No, that would be funny though. Just like false start. just write that down as a note.
Somebody did an intentional offside. Oh, last Monday night, the Falcons did an intentional offside against the Eagles. That's how they drew it up.
Well, there you go. Maybe this is actually the problem though, Michael. You need to write no offsides. You need to draw it up on paper and be more explicit.
I love it. Penalties are a big thing. If you're going to move the ball slowly, if you're going to lean on the rushing attack, can't have holding, can't have false starts. Same for the corners. Pass interference is a chunk play, no matter how it goes down on the scorecard. I think that's another one to really watch for tonight, Greg.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so on the defensive side, how do we feel about the John Allen, Deron Payne potential for a get-right game tonight? Cincinnati's struggled running the football. Theoretically, hopefully they can make some plays behind the line of scrimmage. Like, do you think, one, they can, and two, that they need to, whatever that phrase means?
I'm going to separate the two because I think Allen has played better than Payne so far this year. I don't know that he's getting that credit, but I've seen some things, and I think the motor's humming. I don't know that it's working as a cohesive whole, but I'm seeing some things that I like at least out of him. Whereas, I agree this line as a whole is not playing up to expectation. if we talk about the corners and you got to give them some help, what's the number one thing you can do to give your corners some help? It's a great pass rush. Cleveland Farrell's out tonight. This would be a great night for Jonathan Allen to be able to get after the quarterback. Guard the rush on your way to the quarterback is what they always say. This would be a great night for Dorrance Armstrong to have a breakout game. This would be a great night for Jamin Davis to show up and make some plays, right? Those are the things I've got an eye on is if you're going to win defensively, it's got to involve getting at least a little pressure on Joe Burrow, because otherwise I don't think you have much of a chance here.
No, I totally agree. And something we'll talk about in just a few minutes here is how that looks strategically of, do you blitz him or do you risk dying if you blitz him? And that's always the kind of tightrope you have to watch. Anything else that you think is super important tonight, whether it's the atmosphere, whether it's, the Jaden's first time in prime time, like anything else that you're kind of, you spent time on your show on this morning, or you're kind of watching for to potentially talk about tomorrow in regards to this one tonight?
Yeah, I think that, the concept of why don't you just bracket Jamar Chase? Why don't you just double team him on every snap? And neglects that, I don't know that you have the depth to do that. You probably need to take some of your better corners and put them elsewhere. I don't know that that's feasible to do that on every snap, nor would you want to. I think a guy like Joe Burrow is going to eat you up. I'll say this, though. I think Jaden Daniels was born for prime time. I think Joe Burrow was, too. But I think Daniels is not going to be fazed by the moment. I'm excited to watch him rise to it. I think he'll be ready. One thing to keep an eye on, short week, going to the West Coast tomorrow as soon as they're done here. If this gets out of hand, do you rest the starters? Do you kind of taper things down, knowing you've got a winnable football game on Sunday in Phoenix? I think that's an interesting wrinkle here for the coaching staff to consider.
I hope they don't have to consider it, because getting blown out would make our short week miserable, and I care about us, Michael. Michael,
let's do this. Let's do this the other way.
Okay.
They're up 30. Get everybody into the bar and get them ready to go 3-1 on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. And then our short week, it'll be insufferable, but in a great way. That'd be a different bit. It's Michael Phillips, everybody. You can catch him on the free Odyssey app, 910 The Fan, 10 a.m. to noon, our Richmond sister station down there. Michael, appreciate your time, sir, and we'll have you doing your proper reviews again next week.
That's right. We'll be coming off the Cardinals game, and I'll look forward to it.
Sounds great. See you, buddy. Thank you. All right, that's Michael Phillips with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, let's take a look at some of those defensive strategies. Like, should the Commanders blitz Joe Burrow? We'll try our best to answer that question next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Should the Commanders blitz Joe Burrow tonight? Can we find something in the numbers perhaps that suggests that that is a good idea? Anthony, if I would just ask you off the top, no data, no information. Hey, you want to blitz Joe Burrow tonight? What would you say?
No.
I would probably lean that way as well. Blitzing scares the daylights out of me sometimes. I think, one, I don't know if this team's particularly good at it. I think Quan Martin's a really good blitzer. I think Chin can be a good blitzer. Frankie's obviously a tremendous blitzer, Frankie Louvu. But I don't feel like they have had a ton of success, frankly, blitzing so far this year. They just don't have a lot of sacks. So it's like, where are you going to get home? Are you going to force incompletions? Are you going to force mistakes? But if you look at the numbers would tell you that blitzing Joe Burrow so far this year is a fantastic idea. So far this season, this number is from the NFL's Next Gen Stats. Joe Burrow is the fifth worst quarterback in the NFL on downs where he's blitzed this year. He has dropped back 23 times against the blitz in 2 games. He has gotten off 17 passes. He's completed 10 of them for 72 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. And on those plays, he has taken 3 sacks on 8 pressures, and he has a minus 0.64 EPA per dropback. So that tells you that on average, when Joe Burrow is blitzed so far this year, the Bengals lose over half a point. That's good math. Oh, you blitz them every play. They'll finish with negative 80 points. It'll be sick. Well, I guess that's if they never hit anything. Yeah, but on average, that's what it's been so far this year. The only quarterbacks that have been worse against the blitz so far in 2024 are Will Levis, Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams. Right ahead of him are Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson. So that would tell you not good. Let's see what PFF says, Anthony. PFF has Joe Burrow, when kept clean, as an 81.2 pass or offensive grade this year, 81.5 passer. Not blitzed, he's an 84.1. Under pressure, he drops into the 40s. When blitzed, his passing grade from PFF this year, 44.2. It would seem as if heating him up is probably the right play based off that data and information.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers can definitely, tell one side of the story. I think when you look at who they've played and also who they've been without, I think that adds to the other side of the story.
Oh, so you're saying that numbers might require context.
Yeah.
So having T. Higgins against the blitz might help you.
T. Higgins against the blitz, yes, would definitely help. Also, it would probably help if you weren't going up against Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs defense.
One of the best
in the league
teams in the league. Yeah. And New England's pretty stout defensively, actually, as well.
That too. So
that does seem relevant. What to do?
Should we still try?
I think you try.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, the answer against a great quarterback is always you have to do everything, right? You have to play some coverage. You have to blitz some. You have to keep them guessing. If they know exactly what you're doing, you are in deep trouble. But also you have to, get in positions to even have this stuff happen. You need to get in 3rd and longs. You need to be, this is part of the issue, right? Is for Cincinnati, or part of the issue for Cincinnati, part of the opportunity for Washington is Cincinnati's been terrible running the football this year. They cannot run it. They missed Joe Mixon seemingly terribly. And their offensive line hasn't blocked it up well. Like they're bad. And so you wind up when you can't run the football in bad down and distances. Bad down and distances are bad because, one, they're harder to get because you have farther to go, but it's advantageous for the defense to blitz, right? If you have a 3rd and 3, the time it takes for your receivers to get to the sticks is now. If you're 3rd and 8, it's now. And if you're 3rd and 13, it's ouch, because now you've gotten crushed, right? Blitzing on 3rd and long is risky because you take some players out of the back end, and if a guy gets a ball off quickly and your guys don't, you miss a tackle, then the play's out. But if you're running vertical routes down the field and it takes time and you don't have enough to block, you got a free blitzer coming at a quarterback who doesn't have a shot to even get the ball out. So you have to pick your spots. You have to execute well. You have to be solid enough on the back end to keep the receivers where you want them, even if you give up a little bit. Like, just be solid tackling. If he hits you with a slant, he hits you with a slant. But I think ultimately, like, if you can speed Burrow up, that's great. He will stay in there and, like, take a shot. And he will take sacks. Joe Burrow said, like, on 3rd and 13, okay, we're punting anyway. Like, I might as well try to make a play. Like, he's not the guy who's going to say, hey, let's check it down and we'll punt on 4th and 7. He's going to try to make a play. And so you have to take advantage of that. And it starts in the middle because that's where the best pass rushers on this team are. But I do think, like, Luvu and Quan, especially as their best blitzers, you have to use those guys. Like, I'd send Sainer still on a slot nickel blitz. Like, I would mix it up some tonight, knowing that seemingly the best way to get Joe Burrow off his game so far this season has been to set pressure or send pressure. And if all of a sudden T. Higgins makes that much of a difference, then maybe you reevaluate things. But it fits with who this team wants to be. They want to be aggressive, and it seems to be the best path against Joe Burrow.
Yeah, if we get home, that's one thing. I just haven't necessarily seen it, so that's why I'm a little skeptical.
I'm nervous, but I would do it anyway.
All right, what about the corners? Us missing tackles. Also, we're probably gonna have Noah Igbenogany out there if Forbes can't go. He's lined up against
Forbes, probably unlikely to go considering they called up Bobby Price from the practice squad. I mean,
they got some big receivers over there, Craig.
They
do
got
a tackle in space.
And I mean, in some ways, I like Igbenogany on Chase, like the physicality, and the size, and like T. Higgins is so freaking big. Do you put BSJ? But like, I don't know. Look, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are not great matchups for any corners. No. But sometimes also, like, one of the ways you can take out outside receivers is where do you want to throw against the blitz? Over the middle. Like, you want to get the ball out of your hands quickly, and it's faster to get the ball over the middle than it is to the outside because it takes longer. And those throws are riskier if you have to make them blind, you have to make them with the anticipation. So I think there's a lot of reasons why blitzing and sending pressure makes a lot of sense. And does that leave your corners on islands? Yes. But if also I'm going to leave my corners on islands, then I want to leave them for less time. Yeah. And so it comes with risk because, look, there's no game plan that can cover for missed tackles.
Nope.
There's no game plan that accounts for poor execution. So you got to just be better in some of those areas. But you also need to make sure that you're mixing it up, that you give him some different looks, probably playing some too high shells to kind of make him think about some of those balls, make him harder throws. But then occasionally, are you blitzing out of that? Are you rotating late? Are you disguising best you can to make sure that it's an extra half a beat that Joe Burrow is not seeing things clearly or having to figure it out, and that's less time for your corners to be in a bad spot. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Great day of football yesterday. I don't know that it was so great for our records, but man, did I enjoy watching all that ball yesterday. We'll go through all of Week 3 next as we go around the NFL on a Burgundy and Gold game day on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Back to Commanders and Bengals coming up at 6 p.m. But we go around the NFL Mondays at 5:30, and we thought, well, we're talking a lot about this game, and so we'll definitely get you your full fix of preview. And we've been previewing it since last week, and most of you probably watched the games yesterday, so let's talk about some of the games that we watched, then we'll get right back into previewing Monday Night Football here on this Burgundy and Gold game day. So, Anthony, with that, music, please. Thank you. Records, please, of our picks of these games before we get to them getting worse, because I don't think either of us had a particularly great week.
So you are sitting at 19-12. And I am sitting at 15-16.
Okay.
Sadly. Yeah.
And that included the Patriots-Jets game that we both got correct? Okay, so you're 16-16, I'm 20-12.
Yep.
Okay, that was Thursday Night Football. We talked about it last week. Giants and Browns. Look, there are not enough bad things I can say about Deshaun Watson. And that's before I get to his quarterbacking. There also currently aren't enough bad things to say about Deshaun Watson and his quarterbacking. The Browns are an unmitigated disaster. This game is only this close, 21-15, to the New York Giants, because on the opening kickoff, the Giants fumbled, and Watson's one good pass of the day was a beautiful fade ball to Amari Cooper, who made a heck of a play on the first play from scrimmage. So the Browns were up 7-0 before 15 seconds were gone in the game. On the Giants, 7-0, and they lost 21-15. Anthony, I do not say this because I despise Deshaun Watson. I say this wanting good things for the Cleveland Browns, despite the fact that they chose to give all that money to Deshaun Watson. They need to bench Watson. It is very plain to see that he is not the right guy to play quarterback for any NFL team right now, and that is purely a football assessment. He's got to go. Whatever you need to do, if you want to then keep him away from the team, if you trust him in the locker room to be a backup, I don't know if he's been a good teammate or not, but you can't run a functional offense with this dude playing quarterback right now. And it's not that hard. I don't care what kind of money you're paying him. You have to pay him anyway. Don't pay him and lose. Your defense is too good. You got dudes on there that are too talented. I would bench Deshaun Watson yesterday. Literally yesterday.
Yeah, he looks really bad. And we even seen it like last season when Joe Flacco came in and he was able, to turn things around, how effective and, free-flowing the offense was. Granted, they don't have Nick Chubb, but, I mean, if you're only going to give Jerome Ford the ball 10 times and try to lean on Deshaun Watson to win you the game, you already know you're getting away from your identity of running the ball. So I think it's both. Like, I think it's Watson playing horrible. The fact that you're putting so much trust in him. Granted, you are paying him a whole bunch of money, but you got to stick to your guns. You're
like, don't double down on the mistake. You made a mistake. You made the worst trade and gave the worst contract in league history. We probably knew it at the time, but at least at the time, even though we knew all the awful stuff that Deshaun Watson did, or we knew a lot of, there's been more stories that come out recently. Like, he's currently under investigation. But, like, even then, okay, if we get the guy that played in Houston, we can make a football argument that it's worth it. Again, the morality of that, we don't need to talk about that right now. But the dude in Houston was like a top 5 quarterback. He was great and ascending. He's not that guy. Nope. Like, stop pretending that he's that guy. It's Kevin Stefanski is really smart, and it doesn't feel like it's something that's coming. It doesn't feel like it's something that's coming from a football. Like, this feels like a front office ownership thing. That they're like, yeah, we have to play him because we paid him that money. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, then are you going to not fire me when he gets everyone else fired? Like, just no way. Meanwhile, for the Giants, Malik Neighbors is a monster. It's hilarious watching people in New York be like, oh, is he so good that he's going to save Daniel Jones' job? The answer's probably no. But Jones, nice yesterday. 24 of 34, 236, 2 touchdowns. Neighbors with both of them. 8 catches on 12 targets for 78 yards, including both touchdown catches being some of the sickest catches you've ever seen. Giants now at 1-2, and that is an L for both of us, but I'm fine with it because whenever the Browns lose, I'm happy.
Yeah, that dude, Malik Neighbors, the fact that he was doing that against Martin Emerson, who's one of the up-and-coming corners, Denzel Ward, is just like, whoa, this dude is about to be nasty. The one where he like
not
just
about to be. He is right now.
Yeah, he already is. Good gracious. I wish I had drafted him in my fantasy, but you know,
you and everybody else. Packers and Titans. I think I picked the Packers here. I said, you want to know what?
Yeah, you did.
I don't care whether Jordan Love plays or not. I think that I think that Matt LaFleur is good enough a coach that they'll figure it out. And sure enough, they did. They got Malik Willis throwing the ball downfield. They got Malik Willis rushing. Will Levis is Will Levising. I hope that they continue to give him chances because they, can he get better? And there's certainly some talent there. But there's some Anthony Richardson, Will Levis crossover of you got guys that can make plays that a lot of other people can't. But the problem is they can't make a lot of plays routinely that you need to make to be an NFL quarterback. There's a consistency issue. And so, yeah, he goes for 260 and 2 touchdowns, but it's all the other stuff that he doesn't do that causes them problems. And by the way, it doesn't help when you're chasing the game because they gave up 17 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur, what he did with Malik Willis, man, phenomenal. Like, he easy completion for him. He's getting him outside the pocket to, use his legs. Like, Josh Jacobs didn't have a huge game on the ground, but they still ended up with more than 150 rushing yards on the ground for the day. So it's just a testament to they're going to find a way to, stick to, running the ball and using the run to set up the pass. And it was very easy for Malik Willis to, step in and, deliver some of those passes. So shout out to LaFleur. Hey, look, I'm a believer now. I'm a believer. Even if Jordan Love isn't playing, I'm a believer.
Yeah, I'm a believer in LaFleur, period, till the end of time. You were there, Anthony.
I was indeed.
And it does appear that the streak is over, that it is real. Anthony Haney, welcome back to all your favorite stadiums. Colts 21, Bears 16. Actually, maybe we didn't do as bad on the picks. We're getting to a stretch of bad picks. Because I got Green Bay right. You did not. You had Tennessee.
Nope. I'm down one.
We both were on the Colts because I said we got to stop thinking about what the Bears could be and look at what they are. And we'll talk about the Indy side of it in a second. But the Bears need to figure out what they should be. They cannot throw the ball 52 times with a rookie quarterback. That is absolutely ridiculous. And his numbers look better than they are. 363 on those 52 attempts, in part because he has a Hail Mary at the end of the first half that adds 50 yards, although they did not score on the play. Classic bat it down, catch it, get tackled at the 1 yard line bit. No points or no touchdowns until the fourth quarter. Caleb gets his first career touchdown passes, including the first one ever to Rome Odunze. Goes over 100 yards. But at the end of the day, the Bears, their running game is a nightmare. And they spent money on DeAndre Swift, who is not good. He didn't have a single successful rush yesterday on 10 attempts. Successful rush means you get a certain number of yards based off the down and distance, and whatever those moving metrics are. Like 1st and 10, I think you have to get a 4-yard rush. Like if it's 3rd and 3, you have to get the amount for a first down. He had 0 successful rushes yesterday on double-digit attempts. They spent money on him in free agency. Why? They got to figure something out there to support Caleb Williams. They put way too much on his plate, and I also just feel like, I don't know, Ant, you have a different view because you're there. I feel like Caleb understands the timing of when he's supposed to get out of the pocket and bail and try to I gotta escape. But sometimes I feel like he just drops back in the pocket and pretends to play quarterback until he can do the hero stuff. And it's like, nah, dude, you're not there for funsies. You're there to try to get the ball out of your hands. There's just nothing that happens quickly in that offense. And it turns into what Caleb was at USC, which was a guy that, yeah, they had a bad offensive line, but he just runs around way too much to really be sustainably successful. And if they don't fix that, then they're going to ruin one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen come out in a long, long time. Because if you can get him on schedule, he can be closer to what Mahomes is, because Mahomes gets the ball out all the time. And then when he needs to, break glass in case of emergency. That ratio cannot be backwards, and that's what it is right now for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think you have a perfect assessment of Caleb. I think there were times yesterday where he was quick and decisive, but majority of the time he doesn't want to be quick and decisive. He wants to, hold onto the ball, and try to, run around and hopefully get a large play down the field. Like, this is the NFL. Sometimes you just got to dink and dump. You got to put together, 10 play, 11 play, 12 play drives as opposed to just going for the home run. So yesterday I did see that, because even on his interceptions, like the first one where Jalen, he's sitting in cover 2 and Caleb goes through all of his progressions, and then he gets to his last one and he didn't throw the ball like hard enough. He didn't get it out there for it to be an out pass, and Jalen just jumps it, and it's just like you got to move with a little urgency, and I don't think he moves with urgency sometimes.
No, it's not. Like, in so many ways, the best thing that happened to Patrick Mahomes coming out was specifically not just sitting a year, but sitting a year behind Alex Smith, a guy who understood at a fundamental level, as Alex used to always say, you won't go broke making a profit. And yes, that you're not going to get rich making a profit at the levels that Alex Smith made a profit in his career. These little tiny deposits over and over again. Eventually, like, you need to hit a big one, and that's where Pat took that offense to a completely different level. But down in, down out, like, the difference between Pat Mahomes and Alex Smith actually isn't that much, and like, that's a compliment to Pat and to Alex. And for Caleb right now, it's just not how he sees the game, and they need to get that through his head quickly. And I don't know that they have I don't know that they've set up the right infrastructure to do that there. I have a lot of questions about how they've handled it. And I think it's very different, by the way, than the way they're handling Jaden Daniels here, in a way that I think could pay off in the long term. On the Colts side of it, JT gets going, 23 carries, 110 yards. The Anthony Richardson experience, man, I'm so, like, what was it like to be in the stands as he just, in like the span of 4 plays, just drops these beautiful deep balls and then has the most mind-blowing red zone interception that any of us have ever seen in our lives?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. You throw a 44-yard pass to Alec Pierce, perfect, and then 2 plays later you throw a gift, essentially, to Tremaine Edmonds. I just couldn't believe it, but he said it after the game, like, he has to play better. And again, like, I think his experience at the end of the day, like, he doesn't have the reps that everyone else has, and he'll soon understand that in those situations, just throw the ball away. Like, no need to force anything. Right. Like, take the points. When you have 3 points, be happy with 3 points.
Don't get greedy, and you are throwing something away. And that's an important thing for a young quarterback to learn. I do love the competitor there, though. That is something I really like. The fact that he's not like, we won, it's fine. He's like, he was pretty upset after the game, which you kind of actually low-key love to see. Okay, take a quick break. When we come back, we will speed through the rest of the games around the NFL. And then coming up at 6 o'clock, we get back to the Commanders and Bengals. Burgundy and Gold game day. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Continuing our trip around the NFL here on the Hoffman Show. Then we are back with our Pick 6 to Commanders and Bengals coming up at 6 p.m. Texans and Vikings. Do you believe in the Vikings now, Anthony? Oh, my goodness. And also, is something wrong with the Texans? Like, do we think this is something more bad Texans or more good Vikings of a 34-7 blowout win for Minnesota?
Definitely more on the Vikings. The Vikings have held all of their opponents, I think, to under 10. So I think that's a testament to Brian Flores and the defense he has over there.
I think you have to give a ton of credit to him. I think you have to give a ton of credit to KOC, obviously. And I think that's a good fit. Like, Brian Flores, there's a lot of stuff that happened in Miami that was not good. And I don't know that he was ready for that job. And, the Belichick way, like, that's a different, Kevin understands where he came from because Kevin played for Belichick. And but Kevin sees the way like coach and manage people a little bit differently. And I think it's a great marriage, and it's probably gotten the best out of Brian, hearing some of Brian's comments this year. So obviously he's tremendously gifted from a schematic standpoint. He's got the right personnel, it seems, to run what he wants to run. And Kevin doesn't seem to care who he's got running his personnel. And I think it just shows, like, some of these quarterbacks that fail, a guy like a Sam Darnold, who is seen as a bust, go play for Kevin O'Connell. You go, last year he was in San Francisco with Kyle. That coaching matters a ton at that position. And so I think that's great to see. And we'll see if he can take the lessons that he learns this year to wherever he winds up going in the future. Or if Minnesota's just like, hey, we took J.J. McCarthy, but if Darnold's going to get us here, like, let's go into next year and let them battle it out. And if JJ's not ready, then shoot, let's just keep rolling with Darnold because, hey, he gets the ball to Justin Jefferson, and that seems to be a good way to win. Eagles 15, Saints 12. Just a wacky game, dude. 15 points in the fourth quarter for the Eagles, all 15. This is two teams that we thought had pretty potent offenses, but at the end it winds up being a total defensive struggle. Saints can't get anything going. Jalen Hurts, 29 for 38, 311 and a pick. Really, it comes down to Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert were probably the best skill guys on the field. And they made plays. 65-yarder for Saquon, one of his 2 touchdowns. Goddard, 10 for 170, was just a monster. And at the end of the day, Eagles get the 3-point victory. It's disappointing for the Saints, who had looked tremendous so far this year. But I don't think the Eagles come out of this game being like, yeah, we're in great shape. And obviously they lose Devontae Smith in it with a concussion. A.J. Brown doesn't play. Lane Johnson goes out in this game. So the Eagles the good news for them is they're 2-1. The bad news is I think they're struggling to kind of figure out who they are and who they want to be.
Yeah, shout out to the Eagles getting the dub. I think the Saints are going to be all right. They couldn't get the run game going, but give it a couple of weeks. I think they'll be back.
Vibes are still bad in Philly. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. By the way, did we have Philly in that game? I think I took the Saints.
Yeah, we both had the Saints.
Idiots. Chargers and Steelers. Steelers 20, Chargers 10. I don't know what to do with our records for this, Anthony, because I said if Justin Herbert plays, I will take L.A. If he is out, I'll take Pittsburgh. And he left, first half?
No, he left. He got hurt in the third.
It was third quarter?
Yep.
But it was still, the Chargers were still right there in the game. And then Taylor Heineke came in and things went sideways. And the Steelers, I'll take the L. He clearly wasn't himself.
No, he wasn't.
Justin Fields, all of a sudden 3-0, doing what he needs to do. Makes a couple of big throws per game, moves the ball on the ground. Najee Harris, 18 carries. The Steelers are a great example of, hey, we're not going to get away from who we should be. Najee Harris, 18 carries. Cordero Patterson, 4. Fields, 6. Jalen Warren, 3. They rushed the ball 31 times. Fields has 32 passing attempts. So they probably called, 55% passes, something like that, in a couple of these Fields runs or scrambles. So, they know who they need to be. And they're not, even if they're not the most efficient running the ball, they're still going to do it because they know the alternative is overexposing their quarterback. Mike Tomlin's really smart. That's how you win a bunch of football games in this league. Broncos, 26, Buccaneers, 7. Upset of the day. Bo Nix out there dual-threading his way to victory. What the hell happened at Tampa in this one?
They're just banged up. Literally, their entire team is hurt. So I can't really be mad But again, this is the NFL. Everybody in the NFL is good, and I think we just realized that yesterday. Yeah.
Speaking of, Panthers 36, Raiders 22. Andy Dalton, I'm sorry about all those things I said. Dalton with the first 300-yard, 3 TD game of the year in the NFL. I think the only one so far this year in the NFL. Okay, Chuba Hubbard, 21 carries, 114. The Raiders' run game, by the way, probably. My guy Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show said, I think the Raiders' run game is the worst thing in the NFL right now. Like of an offense trying to do something now that the Panthers can pass the football. The worst, hey, team pass, team run. The Raiders' run game is the worst in the NFL. Their defense was obviously terrible yesterday. And Antonio Pierce's comments afterwards were fantastic. Said, we had some guys out there making business decisions, so we're going to make some business decisions. I'd expect to see some changes in lineups and possibly some guys getting cut from the Vegas side this week. Seahawks 24, Dolphins 3. Not much to say here other than the Seahawks are probably pretty good, and the Dolphins need to figure out something at quarterback because Skylar Thompson ain't it. They need to figure out I don't think a Bryce Young trade is going to fix their problems, but I might take a shot at that. I might be calling any other team that's got some kind of viable backup quarterback situation. I'm calling New England and being like, do you want to start your Drake May experience? We'll take Jacoby. Like, I would be hitting up everyone with a playable backup quarterback in Miami. Because you can't, they're too far in, right? They've got money spent on Tyreek and Waddle and all these dudes. Like, they can't just be like, we'll draft one next year.
And wait that long.
No. Ravens 28, Cowboys 25. Ravens had this one in the bag, and then the Cowboys came storming back in the fourth quarter. Ravens have oddly had a really tough time closing games. And it's weird because you think a team that runs the football as well as they do would be fine, and then they're definitely not fine when it's time to close out a game. I don't know what that's about, but they have blown, I think it's since 2021, more fourth quarter leads. They're flashing the stat on the broadcast yesterday than any other team in football. It's a wacky bit.
Yeah, that's nasty. But the Cowboys recovering an onside kick, I think that helped save them a little bit. That made the game very, very, very interesting because if the Ravens got it, I think they were going to put them away.
Yeah, probably, but still, got to do it. Zay Flowers got to handle that onside kick. For Lamar and company, they're trying to figure it out. How do we mix Derrick Henry and Lamar and the skill sets? The answer yesterday, Lamar, a tidy, 12 of 15 for $182 and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, 25 carries for $151. Lamar, 14 carries, 87 yards and a touchdown.
Just run the ball. Just run the
274.
Ball. Oh, my gosh.
274 on the ground yesterday.
Well, I think we know how to be Dallas.
Run it. 49ers. Whew. What a brutal loss. The Rams get some heroics from Matthew Stafford, pull off the 27-24 win. And it kind of comes down to me, Anthony, to their skill dudes didn't do what they needed to do. They had drops. They have a play late in the game. 6 drops.
6 drops.
Yeah. Bell late in that game. The reaction from Kyle Shanahan, he's like Brock hits you in the hand. So Brock Purdy yesterday, 22 of 30 for 292 and 3 touchdowns with 6 drops. So that means he had essentially what should have been a 28 for 30 day. Yep. Brock Purdy might be really good, y'all. He's the NFL's leading passer, I believe.
Yeah, he is. I don't want people blaming him because, again, he did what he needed to do.
And that's, by the way, Trent goes out in this game. They're already missing Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle. The Niners are going to be – I don't know what we're going to do with the Niners in our power rankings this week because I don't think we can keep them in prime contenders when they're 1-2. But, if they're able to function without these dudes, what happens when they get back and they get supercharged? Yeah. Last but not least, Lions 20, Cardinals 13. Just, nice trickeration from Ben Johnson in this one. Gets you 1 touchdown. Lions defense does enough. Kyler made some plays, but just never could string anything really together. And then on Sunday night last night, Chiefs 22, Falcons 17. Big stop on 4th down late.
Was that a PI?
No. I don't think he was there that early.
Okay.
I think, like, as a defender, you have a right to space as well. And an offensive player jumping back through you, like, yes, you do have some obligation to make a play on the ball, but I don't think it was so egregiously early. Like, you can't just throw that ball in the back of the defender and expect PI. If the defender, like, pushes through the offensive player, that's one thing. But I think that was bang enough that I don't know that I would have called it. I have a much bigger problem with the call of whatever the hell they ran on 4th and 1. Like, just...
I don't know what that was, man.
Getting back in Madden Pro form from, like, Madden 2004.
That was a bad call. Almost as bad as the Bears running a speed option on 4th and 1.
Bro.
I don't get it.
The execution of that was almost as bad as the call, too.
Yeah.
Do you see all their linemen just, like, fall down at the snap?
Their linemen were terrible, Craig. I'm not going to – they were horrible.
Not good, bro. Not good. All right, then, of course, we got 2 Monday Nighters tonight. Jags and Bills, you'll hear on the Team 980. And, of course, all eyes on Commanders and Bengals. We get back to our preview next, Pick 6 style. Anthony, do we have records, by the way? How do we do this week?
We both actually went 7-7, so these next 2 games will determine whether or not we finish 500.
And so we were both on the Bills tonight, I believe.
Yes, we are.
And then we are picking Commanders Bengals at the end of the show.
Yes, we are.
But right now, we take our final break of the hour. We come back just after 6 o'clock, and we do our Pick 6. That's what we're picking. 6 players who we have our eyes on tonight, Commanders and Bengals. Our preview continues as we're just 2.5 hours from kick here on a Burgundy and Gold game day. Cincinnati hoping to wreck their hopes of reviving their season. Bengals 0-2. Commanders 1-1 heading into their Week 3 matchup on Monday Night Football. It's a burgundy and gold game day here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. And just after 6 o'clock, right before a game, normally we do this on Fridays, but Monday Night Football edition of the Pick 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, and build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, this is how it goes. The prediction version of the Pick 6. We pick 6 players who we are most intrigued to watch in the game that we think might just help the Commanders get to a win. We have opened it up this season, so if there's any Bengals that we think are relevant to the conversation that we think maybe stopping them. Last week, for instance, I said Dexter Lawrence, which turned out pretty well. They contained Lawrence, and lo and behold, Anthony, they won the football game. So who you got? You're up first this week. You got number 1, Vamos.
Number 1.
Number 1, baby, I'm going with Sam Cosmi.
Oh, some love for the big fella. Why you got Sam Cosmi number 1?
So for the fact that BJ Hill and DJ Reader are both going to be likely out for today's game, I think we got to take advantage of
Sheldon
not having.
Rankins, you mean?
Sheldon
BJ
Rankins.
Hill, yeah.
Not having those two guys up front on the defensive side of the ball for the Bengals. So I think running behind our I guess he's not an all-pro, but I think he can eventually get there. Yeah, he's our best guard. Running behind him, I think it's probably going to be in our best interest. So I'm going with Sam Cosmi as number 1. I think we rely heavily on the run today, and he's going to be the leader.
I think it's a good call. Rankins out, BJ Hill doubtful. So we'll see what they can do inside. I'm gonna be same path, slightly less. I don't know. It's direct. Go ahead and let's go number 2.
Number 2.
Brian Robinson Jr. I think is a really, really terrific running back. I think tonight we get to find out just how great he is. He's going to have opportunities because of what you said. They got these 2 defensive tackles that are out. Biotish and Cosmi are good. Allegretti can grind. Cliff has done a great job designing the run this year. And Brian Robinson has actually had a great season individually, right? Look at, stats like yards over expected or yards after contact, things that really try to measure how a running back is playing outside of the system that he's playing in, because it is a position and a task running the football as a ball carrier that is so dependent on everybody else. But if at the end of the day, like if you go out and have 150 yards, the offensive line, I'll give credit to his offensive line, as Brian Robinson has 150 yards. We know who gets the love at the end of the day, the guy who puts up the stats in fantasy, which just reminded me, Anthony, I actually do need a decent night from Brian Robinson in fantasy. That's not why I'm picking him, but it's Monday Night Football. You're on a national audience. I don't think a lot of people realize, like, this kid's really, really good. And this could be, we talk about a coming out party for Jaden or, whoever else on Monday night. I think this could be the Brian Robinson coming out party. If the Commanders are going to win, it kind of needs to be the Brian Robinson coming out party. And if they lose, and like no one knows his name by the end of the night, they don't have a chance of winning. And that could happen, by the way, because of the score. If Cincinnati goes out and has a big first quarter and hits a couple of big explosives, then, well, now you're chasing the game, you're getting away from your game plan, etc. You're passing the ball more, and even then he's still probably a factor, but not nearly as big of one if you have to start, chucking the ball down the field. So Brian Robinson, for a million reasons, both as a symptom and a cause, if you will, needs to be a big part of what they do tonight. Brian Robinson is number 2, my number 1 choice in our pick 6.
Number 3.
Number 3, Craig, I'm going to go with Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Over the weekend, we found out Cleveland Farrell, he was going to be out for tonight's game against the Bengals. So who would possibly be filling in for him? And I think John Keim, he was the one that asked whether or not Cleveland being out, we'll see more of Jamin Davis. And he didn't really say too much about Jamin Davis. He pivoted right to Javonte Jean-Baptiste and talking about Johnny Newton as well. as guys that are, slowly but surely getting their feet. So I think tonight I'm definitely going to be looking at him. Granted, he's going to be in a rotation with Dante Fowler, Dorrance, and all the other edges. But I'm excited to see with this opportunity how much playing time they allow this guy to, go out there and affect the game.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn did say, Fowler's the guy that probably gets the biggest boost. I would assume Fowler's starting, but, Fowler's a smaller guy, relatively speaking. He's, he's bigger compared to us. We're just mere mortals. He's an NFL football player, but he's not a 290-pound edge. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is a big dude. He is more of that, first and second down body type. So does he get some more reps in those situations? Can he set a hard edge? Can he, contain Burrow? Burrow can scramble a little bit, but, do you do what you need to do to rush in tandem with Payne and Allen? It's a great call because I do think part of what they need to do tonight is get pressure, and that involves doing your job really well as an edge to both make sure that if there's any blitzers or anybody else coming off of you, they have the right gaps available, but also straight up, do you win your one-on-one matchups when you get the opportunities? And by the way, if you are the fourth guy on a line, you're going to get one-on-one opportunities. Can you punish them? And whether that is Jamin, whether that is Javonte, I do wonder, they called Andre Jones up from the practice squad. Do they go with the 5 defensive tackles like they did last week? Do they have Andre Jones be inactive and they just called him up and congrats, bro, you get an NFL game check? Do they have Jamin inactive again? I would tend to think that they probably have Andre Jones inactive, and Jamin's the guy that's out there a little bit more, and see if he can make some more plays. But I think Javonte Jean-Baptiste is a really good one. Not the guy that I'm going to pick is the most important in the defensive room, though. Number 4, Anthony.
Number 4.
Quan Martin. Quan Martin has 2 huge jobs today. 1, over the top, don't get beat. If you're in single high safety mode, if you're in cover 2 and you got a deep half, you have to make sure that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Mike Gesicki and anybody else that they send vertical has no opportunity to hit you for a big explosive play. Actually, he's kind of got 3 jobs. 2, I think he probably will wind up in some man-to-man situations on Gesicki. I think Chin probably takes a little bit more of that. Chin's a little bit bigger and is fine on a guy like Gesicki as a tight end. Quan, obviously, we know has the cover skills, playing some corner and playing some nickel last year and in college. But that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. Obviously, Percy Butler, I imagine, will play a fair amount of snaps tonight as well. But then the big one for me that kind of separates Quan, on top of being the guy that when they're in base is probably the most likely to be single high, etc., is Quan is a blitzer. He's a fantastic blitzer. And he times it well. He hits the gap hard. And there are opportunities to be had against the Cincinnati O-line. And, you see it in the first couple of games. You see New England get some really nice pressure. You see in one of the big moments of the game, 3rd and 5, late in that game against Cincinnati, Spagnuolo dials one up, and it is safety coming down and crashing through the line and getting Joe Burrow. And so can Quan Martin be that guy, be explosive as a blitzer, be someone who causes havoc, be someone who maybe gets a deflection and you get a turnover? They're going to need that stuff if they want to legitimately compete tonight. This offense is too good for Cincinnati to think that they can defend the entire field and not give up some explosives and not, give up some drives. They're going to need a turnover to flip the field and to not, ensure that Cincinnati doesn't score because they no longer have the ball. And Quan Martin could be a chaos agent of the coverage variety, of the man-to-man variety, hey, dude, just go make a play, and, of course, as a blitzer. So I'll go Quan Martin as my second guy and number 4 in our pick 6.
Number 5.
Number 5, I'm going to go with Noah Brown. I was trying to figure out which wide receiver 2 I necessarily wanted to lean on, whether it was going to be Diami or Noah, but I think in terms of the explosive play, I think I like Noah in that aspect. We didn't see him week 1. He got caught up week 2. It made some great plays down the field in the second half of the game. And I'm expecting us, to run the ball, but I think capitalizing off, running the ball and setting up the pass, I think he's going to have some opportunities to go out there and make some big plays. So I think Noah Brown, he's my third fifth guy in our pick six.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right choice for wide receiver 2. I said this last week. Dan Quinn has been reluctant to say we're going to have a distinctive wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
And I get it, because I do think they're going to rotate these guys a fair amount, and they all have a little bit different usage. Like, Olamide Zaccheaus is really, really solid as a screen runner. The screen game is not going anywhere as much as I think some fans want it to. They're easy completions. They're not necessarily purely screens at times. It's a box count situation where they go to the line and they have a handoff or a screen. And it's not a true RPO because you're not reading anybody, but you're simply saying, oh, there's 7 in the box, and that leaves 3-on-3 over here. We're going to throw the bubble. Oh, there's 6 in the box. They got 4-on-3 over here. That's bad numbers for the All right, picking up our pick 6 on the Hoffman Show. We kicked a cord. Sorry about that, but we're all back now. Everything's great. So we're talking about Noah Brown. We're talking about how the Commanders have been reluctant, Dan Quinn and company, to name a number 2 receiver, that they want to use Olamide Zaccheaus, they want to use De'Ami Brown, etc. But what I've been saying is that Noah Brown is the guy that if he emerges as the number 2 receiver for this team, that's the best possible outcome because he's the best or the most explosive of the bunch. I would prefer like Olamide Zaccheaus to be more of a number 3 in a rotation with De'Ami and Luke McCaffrey, et cetera. Like De'Ami Brown's a good 4 in the NFL. If he's your 2, I don't know that that's exactly the greatest thing. I hope that he can emerge and continue to be effective. He's been great on the screens. He's really tough to bring down. But it is kind of funny because I still think, Anthony, I was listening to something over the weekend and I saw like, oh, De'Ami Brown, deep threat. And I'm like, when will people stop saying this? When has De'Ami Brown, outside of one game against Tennessee with Carson Wentz, been a deep threat in the NFL?
I mean, the thing is, like, I think he's been open a couple of times. He just hasn't capitalized on those moments, though. He's had a couple of drops. And when we seen him at UNC, that's all we saw. We saw him.
Yeah, he was a good deep threat in college.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Congrats on doing it in the ACC with all due respect. I, as a Syracuse alum, am not allowed to talk bad about the ACC because we lost to Stanford on Friday. But the point is that he has never done it in the NFL. What he has done has been really tough on some of these screens earlier in this year. He's been a good blocker. He's been a good special teams player. And so, yeah, I would like Noah Brown to emerge to be the number 2. And then ultimately, like Luke McCaffrey. I think he's actually the guy. You know what, Anthony? I was trying to figure out who I want to do number 6. I'm putting Luke McCaffrey at number 6. Give me a number 6 if we can.
Number 6.
Luke McCaffrey has been open for some big plays this year. And for whatever reason, despite the fact that these two have been great friends all season, and Jaden Daniels and Luke have worked together quite a bit, they come in together as rookies, they have not been on the same page. He and Jaden and Terry, Jaden and Luke, I would say that their rapport doesn't seem to be as good as Jaden's with Noah Brown with some of the balls that they've hit 2 weeks into the season. And Noah didn't even play week 1. Some of the biggest catches, biggest moments of the game, he hits Noah Brown. Sometimes it be like that, but I also don't think that's a long-term sustainable thing. I do think that will come around, but I think Luke McCaffrey has had some opportunities, and there's no way that they haven't talked about it. You know, Cliff being like, hey, Jaden, this is what we're looking for here. Let's get this deep over route. Let's get this crosser. And also, I think Luke is good enough with the ball in his hands that they'll probably scheme up a couple touches for him as well. I think getting him going is good for this offense. And so, you know, we obviously take Jaden Daniels off the board for our pick 6 because he'd be the obvious number 1, as any starting quarterback would be each week. But you start looking at some of the targets, like, yeah, Terry's the easy way out. Obviously, we talked quite a bit about getting him going. But if they can get the other guys going, which is why I think, Anthony, you say Noah, why I say Luke McCaffrey, like that's going to open things up for McLaurin because they have definitely doubled him and tried to take him out of games so far, defenses, through these first 2. And there haven't been enough instances where Jaden has punished that. I think Jaden's done a lot of stuff right. I think overall he's played well, but this is an opportunity for growth. And so I'll say Luke McCaffrey would be another sign that you're seeing that growth if he's starting to get some of these touches.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I think also the fact that we slowly but surely saw the offense open up a little bit where Jaden was, throwing the ball a little bit more down the field. So maybe, we are seeing Luke down the field now as opposed to, going to the check down or the underneath route. So, yeah, I'm excited for this game, and hopefully this is just another, step in the growth and development of Jaden in terms of pushing the ball down the field.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be tough. This defense is complicated, and we'll talk about that more next. We'll make our predictions and give you some of the biggest schematic things to watch tonight. Next, that is our pick 6, though. We'll see how we did tomorrow. So the Tuesday edition of the pick 6, rare Tuesday edition of the pick 6, but that's what Monday Night Football will do for you. Get you some of your favorite segments on a different day of the week. That's tomorrow, but coming up next, again, we'll pick the game, and we're just 30 minutes away from handing it over to the Burgundy and Gold Game Day Live folks, a.k.a. Denton and Linnell. I could have just said Denton and Linnell, not got myself all in a tongue twister. But that's 30 minutes away, an hour away from kickoff of Jags-Bills here on the Team 980. We got you covered every single aspect of Monday Night Football here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Had a little bit of a technical glitch there, but I think we're Anthony, can you give me a thumbs up here? Are we good to go? Are we actually on the radio here? Is this all working? All right, we're on the radio. Yep. We're on the YouTube stream. Everybody's where they're supposed to be. It's been an adventurous hour here. But hey, it's Monday Night Football. We're just gonna, Anthony, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make plays. That's what we're gonna do. You and I, we're gonna make plays, because sometimes that's what it takes. You have to overcome the adversity. Whatever's thrown at you, you just got to roll. I feel this is actually me just pumping Anthony back up right now because he's had a stressful 5 minutes.
Nah, I have.
That's all right though. All right, so here's what we got. We need the biggest keys to the game, and we need a prediction. I will go first. The biggest key to the game for Washington is to not win, but thoroughly dominate the time of possession tonight. In order to do that, there's going to be some other things that happen, right? It's just like, oh, well, let's sit on the football and not go anywhere, and then hope that they sit on the ball for less. And we get our 3 and outs with running the football to nowhere, and they get theirs with incompletions. And so we dominate time of possession. No, if you dominate time of possession, it means you are efficient offensively. It means you're not facing a ton of third downs. And if you are, they're third and short, and you're converting them, and that you're running the football, that you are not turning the football over, that you're maximizing your possessions, that all those things are happening. And then ultimately, hopefully, they're scoring at the end of it. But I think if they want to give themselves a shot to be in this, they're going to have to take advantage of the fact that Washington up through the middle is at full strength and Cincinnati is not. That Cincinnati on the defensive line is missing their top 2 defensive tackles, and they've struggled stopping the run already this year. And Washington, that has been their strength. So to me, Anthony, that is the key for Washington. Whether it's enough or not, TBD. I'll give my prediction after we give some more keys. But yeah. That to me is the number one thing tonight. The strategic play for Washington is run the football up the gut, use that, it's some play action, and also, to counter off of it, can Jaden Daniels pull a couple and get some big plays on the outside, continually convert first downs, and ultimately hold on to the football for a large portion of this game.
Yeah, I love that key. Definitely just, keeping the ball away from Joe Burrow. But I think I want to also add, we got to score points. Field goals are not going to get the job done today. So I think executing, scoring when we're in the red zone, I think is going to be instrumental for us to, go out here and get a win. We're not facing Daniel Jones. We're not facing the Giants. We're going against Joe Burrow, who has time and time again found ways to win and just ultimately just put up points on the board. So I would say the biggest thing is executing, not getting behind on the chains, because we saw what that did to our offense the first 2 weeks, getting behind on the chain. So I would just say executing, converting in the red zone, and not leaning on field goals to win games.
Yeah, I think the other part of kind of the way that you achieve those things is, especially what I was talking about with time of possession, is the risk is that you do what you just talked about, right? The risk is that, oh, hey, cool, we move the ball between the 20s and then we can't score in the red zone, which is exactly what happened last week. And to get around that, it's like, okay, well, let's score from farther out. Let's get some big explosive plays. Let's get Terry down the field. Let's get Noah Brown down the field. Let's get Diami down the field. Let's see if we can get a run that actually goes to the house instead of getting caught at the 20-yard line. Like, those are the kinds of things that would need to happen in order to avoid having to deal with executing in the red zone where it's harder. But the other thing about, kind of running the football, being good down and distance, trying to be efficient, is it keeps you out, or if you can stay out of those third and long situations, then you don't put too much on Jaden and you don't give Lou Anarumo chances to dial up pressure. Because ultimately, Anarumo is one of the better, he's one of the better blitz schemers in the entire NFL. And he is a guy that has a really well-coached unit. These guys aren't going to blow assignments. They're going to be on top of what they're supposed to be on top of. And so you're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to go out and make plays. You're going to have to create you're going to have to create your own opportunities. And in doing so, they're trying to get you backed up. They're trying to get you in third and long, where they can create opportunities for themselves to get a pick, to get a turnover, to confuse you, to light you up, to heat you up as a quarterback. And I just don't want Jaden in those situations because that's where he struggled a little bit more against Tampa. Tampa confused him because Todd Bowles is great. And Anaromo, I don't know if he's Todd Bowles, but he's pretty darn close. I don't he certainly doesn't have the horses that Todd Bowles had in that week 1 matchup, but they've got some really good players on that defensive side. And, if Trey Hendrickson gets a chance to pin his ears back and go, like, he can get you a sack or a strip sack. And Jaden Daniels hasn't turned the football over this year. It's how they've been able to stay competitive when they stayed competitive. But we saw what happened against Tampa. They weren't competitive. And so ultimately, I think that is one of the biggest keys for Washington tonight is not only does it help you dominate time of possession, et cetera, but it keeps you out of those situations where Anaromo can do the more complex stuff, can confuse Jaden, bait him into a pick, have him sit back there not knowing where to go with the football, and you get the strip sack, and unlike against Tampa, maybe you don't fall on it, et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, then you get to how do I think this game is going to play out versus how I hope it plays out for Washington. And let's just say as great as the upsets have been this weekend, I do understand why Washington is one of the biggest dogs of the weekend. They're 7-point dog. It was 7.5, so the number has come back a little bit Washington's way. But at the end of the day, like, the Commanders have not shown that they can prevent explosive plays. I expect Cincinnati to be really selective with when they try to utilize some of the ways Washington has been susceptible to that. Like, Cincinnati's not a team that runs a bunch of motion, runs a bunch of stacks. Like, that's not the good news, quote unquote, is that they don't do that stuff a ton that has given Washington problems. The bad news is it's not that hard to install. They definitely can. And they have such firepower that you might not even need it, considering just, hey, let's get some man-to-man looks and let's roll. And then defensively, I just don't know that Washington has been potent enough offensively that I think they can fully take advantage of a Cincinnati defense that is, I don't want to say ripe for the picking because it's not like Kansas City crushed them last week, but certainly some opportunities could exist, and I don't know that Washington is ready to take advantage of those yet. So I'm going to take Cincinnati tonight. I do think it's close enough. Washington probably covers the 7, but Anthony, I will take Cincinnati straight up for the win.
Yeah, I'm going with Cincinnati as well. I was trying to talk myself into picking the Commanders, and I just didn't want to do what I did against the Bucs, where I talked myself into it. So I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going with the Bengals to win, maybe like 30-24, something like that.
Yeah. I really hope that defensively they just play better tonight. I don't want another week of, hey, do they have any clue what they're doing over there? That would be nice. What was I going to ask? Oh, so far we're both 1-0. No, I'm 2-0 on the year picking Commanders games. You're 1-1.
Yeah, you're 2-0. You picked the Bucs week 1, and then we both picked the Commanders last week. Here's to being
2-1. Here's to me being 2-1, to the Commanders being 2-1. And then, I don't know, Michael earlier this week said he thinks the Cardinals are very beatable. So, I don't know. This is where you start getting ahead of yourself a little bit. But
I'm hoping I'm wrong, though.
I think the Bengals are beatable. I'm not predicting the Commanders will beat them. So it's not a no-chance game. That's for sure. All right, we'll wrap up some final thoughts and get you out of here. A couple of good real things from the weekend as well. And then we hand you off to Denton and Linnell coming up at 7 o'clock here on the Team 980. right, final few minutes of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You get a half hour here on the Team 980 of Denton and Linnell coming up at the top of the hour. Burgundy and Gold game day pregame. They'll be on the Fan for the in-game show as well. And then we have the Monday Night Football game that's not the Commanders game, Jags-Bills, coming up at 7:30, courtesy of Westwood One. The inactives just came out, Anthony, and I actually kind of wish we could eavesdrop on Linnell right now because he was losing his mind last week on the Derek Forrest thing. And Defoe inactive again tonight. This is not a surprise. Like this, literally no one on the beat, no one who covers the team would have expected Derek Forrest to be inactive or not be inactive tonight. And I don't know why it's fully become a thing other than he's a name that fans know and are familiar with. But Emmanuel Forbes officially out. Dan Quinn had said it was much more likely that Forbes would be back for week 4. So he is there in Cincy, but ultimately not going. Sam Hartman, of course, the third quarterback with Marcus Mariota remaining on IR. Forrest, Dominique Hampton remains inactive, as is Chris Paul. And then we knew Cleveland Ferrell was ruled out. The one guy that has gone from active to inactive is Colson Yankoff, the rookie undrafted free agent tight end out of UCLA. He played special teams the first couple of weeks, and instead you have more depth on the defensive line. So not only will they have 5 defensive tackles up to make sure that they have some depth behind Johnny Newton as he continues to work his way into a full snap count. But they also have Andre Jones Jr. and Jamin Davis active. Jones Jr. was activated off the practice squad earlier today. And so he is going to be the 4th or 5th defensive end. I wonder if that's a situational thing. Also, he's been a decent special teams player, and Jamin has less experience playing special teams. So, however they're going to work, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jamin Davis, Andre Jones Jr., that rotation in terms of both edge and special teams, that is something to track tonight based off the inactive list. But that is your inactive list tonight. Real quickly, just another update from around the NFL. It sounds like whoever Adam Schefter's sources are in San Francisco, he just got off the phone with them. Schefter reporting just moments ago, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy has back soreness and will be considered day-to-day. So they're already out Kittle, they're already out Debo, they're already out McCaffrey. Trent Williams got banged up in the game but came back, and now Brock Purdy, who's been just unbelievable, like MVP caliber good this year. Purdy has back soreness and will be considered day-to-day. And on top of that, 49ers defensive tackle Javon Hargrave suffered a partial triceps tear Sunday, likely out for the rest of the season. And more San Francisco news from Schefter. Christian McCaffrey is apparently going to Germany to see a specialist. So things are great in San Francisco, Anthony.
Oh, my gosh. You talk about the rich getting richer. What do you call the adverse effect?
Kyle Shanahan's really going to get tested.
Okay.
Yeah. McCaffrey's got the calf thing. He's going to Germany to get it checked out.
Oh, my gosh. Injuries, man. They're part of the game, but when they hit you like this, it's just
why
like,
predicting things are stupid.
Yeah.
Like, it can all change like that. The best teams in the league become not that formidable. It's wild. Dogs this weekend, they were like 9. I think underdogs this weekend were like 9-3 against the spread, and like 4, 5, 6, 7 of them won outright or something like that. And like the 4 biggest, I think it was the 4 biggest underdogs of the weekend all won outright. Of course, that's insane. Washington would love to continue that tonight. Bananas. Do we have any final thoughts, or do we want to hit real things? Do we have any real things? I know you're dealing with chaos right now, Anthony.
Yeah, I had to put the real things imager over here because this screen for some reason keeps going off. But we have something from last week that we didn't get to. It's the Jim Nantz, and I hope we get to it.
Okay, let's do that because the Jim Nantz thing is great, and it's a great setup to get your mind right for a game.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, so we've all watched Jim Nantz and Tony Romo call football games. Tonight we get Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters, and the Monday Night Gang. We've all seen Nance call it, and we've all seen him call golf. We've seen him call the Final Four for years until this year when he finally stepped down from that, and Ian Eagle took over. But Nance just like he has this like aura about him. Just he just floats up here, and yet the one thing that Jim Nance must do on a game day is the most human thing that you will ever hear.
The things that you absolutely need when you're calling a game.
I need a hot dog at halftime. I don't eat hot dogs any other time of the year. I'll go 3/4 of the way through and I'll throw the rest out and go call the second half.
We need ketchup.
The crew brings in ketchup because they know we're a couple of guys that are likely to make a mess. So, and we're not being divas either. Like, bring us our ketchup. We got to travel our ketchup. Where is it this week?
We used to sing a lot. Maybe I was hurting my voice from time to time.
We ought to bring it back.
I think it's time to bring it back.
We had these little speakers, and it was always
Red Hill Mining Town.
Red Hill Mining Town, and they would have to hit certain notes. And the truck is going crazy because they're saying 10 seconds to air. He's still screeching out the last notes. 5 seconds to air, and then all of a sudden, hello, friends. Jim Nance, Tony Romo.
This is not kidding.
What about doing?
Water, Gatorade, and I probably have a Coke or a Pepsi when I'm there.
One thing on Gatorade. Do you call them by flavor or by color?
Oh, color. Yeah, I've never thought of it by flavor.
I think that's the correct answer, Anthony. Is Gatorades don't have flavors. They have no one calls it like blue ice. It's just blue or whatever the blue. I don't even know if blue ice is the flavor.
I think it's Glacier Freeze or something like that. I couldn't tell you. I can. But yeah, I'm blue.
That's why orange is
red.
the best because then it's just orange. Orange is orange.
Yeah, I love orange.
So I wish we don't have time for me to explain. I have a funny bit that I'm going to tell you off the air, and then we can try to bring it back on the air tomorrow. I just don't have time to explain it right now. But here's what you need to know: the show's over in 10 seconds, and Jim Nance has a hot dog at every halftime, and I think that's awesome. Monday Night Football. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Enjoy the game, everybody.